Yo, what's up? This is Nation Outside Seas of Change. My name is Cam.
And I'm your host, T Mac.
And we have the lovely ladies here from Nation Outside. We want to just talk about what is Nation Outside. So my first question is introduce yourselves. What are your names and titles?
My name is Tanae Gildia. I'm the Assistant Director of Southwest Michigan.
My name is Rachel Worthy, and I'm the program manager at Nation Outside.
And like I said, I'm T Mac. I'm the assistant director of the Southeast region of Nation Outside.
My name is Cam, and I'm the community navigator of the Oakland, Macomb, and Wayne County, the Tri-County area.
So, what up, though? How y'all doing?
Good.
Y'all
I'm feeling good.
acting all nervous and stuff? Listen, first thing that I want the viewers to know is what is Nation Outside. So, if somebody asks you off the street, they see you in that hoodie and say, "Hey, what is Nation Outside?" What you gonna tell them?
I would say it's a place of family, community, second chances, a place where people come together with lived experience and give each other a voice to share their stories.
Yeah, no doubt.
Say we are the voice of the formerly incarcerated. What we do is break down the barriers between people coming home from incarceration and being able to live a successful reentry. For some people, that looks like housing, education, employment. We even have a hand in jail based voting. But for me personally, it was about the mental and emotional health of coming home and being able to be successful rather than the person that I went into incarceration being.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's dope. So I just want to go into some usage, Nate, and what is the why? The why you do this
I
work.
don't never want anybody to feel the way that I felt in my reentry. I white knuckled my entire reentry without any resources because I come from a family that believes somebody else needs it more than we do. So so I had their support and I had a lot of support. I don't want to sugarcoat that. I had what I believe to be best case scenario in terms of I immediately got out and I had somebody that offered me a position and my mother had an extra vehicle that she was willing to let me use. I had best case scenario in that way. But in terms of being able to reach out and connect with others who have gone through what I've gone through because none of my family is formally incarcerated. So it was a matter of either trying to get them to understand what I was now trying to readapt to coming home or being in the world doing my best at all these jobs with nobody around me who had been through what I've been through.
What about your why, Rachel?
I would say that my why is to kind of change the narrative in society of what reentry is, to continue to close the gap for people like around stigma and judgment and discrimination for people who are system impacted. I think it's a lot of misconceptions about people who've been incarcerated, and I think that Nation Outside and through other pathways of reentry, like I just want to contribute to that and like kind of change the narrative of an example of what people returning look like and how like different forms of success, what that looks like, and just
I love that so much, and let me tell you why. Because when I've been out in the public and people say, "Who is Nation Outside? What is that shirt that you're wearing?" and I explain who we are before I tell them that I am we, I've had people be like, "Well, they're criminals and they're monsters and they deserve what they get and they this and they that." And then I'm able to come back with them. I'm like, "Well, we've had a nice conversation in the last hour, haven't we? What would you think if you knew that I am they and I am them?" And they're
Yeah.
always like, "Well, not you, Tanae, you're different." I'm not different.
yeah.
I'm not different. I'm the same. I am they and I am them. And you just spouted off this overarching view without even actually knowing who we are.
Yeah, and for people that might be hearing certain words and terms for the first time, like lived experience, reentry, I'm gonna break down what lived experience is, which is everybody at Nation Outside that works for Nation Outside, at least 99.9% of us, we all been locked up, right? So we all had some run in with the law. It could be on any level from spending the night in jail to spending 47 years in jail because you was a juvenile lifer and anything in between. So lived experience is just people who have went through the criminal and justice system, right? And have that experience lived out. And reentry, when we say reentry, we just talking about coming out of incarceration, walking back into the free world.
Just basically like re-entering society. We don't use terms as offenders or anything like that. We are returning citizens. We are part of the community and we are active in the community. That's why we are nation outside.
Yeah,
We really
yeah.
outside these streets.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. So I got a question. I'm glad you mentioned that, Cam. Um, what separates Nation Outside from different organizations? When you hear about Nation Outside and when you're thinking about what's the special sauce, why does Nation Outside, how is it impactful? Not that other organizations are not, but what's our secret sauce? Why do you think Nation Outside is super impactful, Rachel?
I think partially like we're inclusive to everybody. It's not just one example of what somebody returning looks like, what they've experienced. We list like we consider everybody's stories, like everybody's voice matters, and I think that that makes our organization stand out. And yeah.
I'm going to go back to what you said about lived experience, right? So I kind of compare that to I didn't decide to go to college for 4 years or 8 years and get a degree and become any of those professions. What I did was go into a for
Went to a
me,
different trade school.
I went, yeah. So for 14 years, I experienced this life. And it's not only just the life of incarceration, it's what led me to that incarceration because I personally spent 10 years, excuse me, in and out of the streets, using and making drugs. So I also have a very heavy rooted home inside recovery. And not everybody's recovery is the same. So everybody that I come in contact with that is formerly incarcerated or that falls under the reentry umbrella, if I don't know what you've been through, if I can't relate, I know somebody that can. I can point you in the direction of somebody that you can relate to. And I think that that's one of the most important parts about Nation Outside. Yes, we help guide you to all these resources, but the community that we're able to create and build around the people who are coming in with us is the strongest part of what we do.
What about you, Cam? What you think is part of the secret sauce of Nation Outside success?
Just being actively out there, being able to be seen, also having that lived experience to relate, to understand that these barriers sometimes be looking abnormal to people is very common. We talk about identification barriers. We talk about job placement. Things normal people go through is harder sometimes when you have that record without that support. So we are that support, and also we are able to be the voice for the voiceless.
Yeah, no doubt. So for me, it's the trauma informed practices. Everything that we do being rooted in trauma informed practices, because we all know our traumas, or most of our traumas, didn't start with incarceration. It was pre incarceration, during incarceration, and post incarceration, right? So having that trauma informed lens and some of our like out cold tenets of modeling the way, right? We gonna walk it like we talk it. Some of that stuff about just like being peer led, right? So that peer led and that trauma informed, us being them, like you said,
I
it's a
am they.
it's a real powerful thing. And the last thing I'll mention is the variety, as you was talking about, of who we are. We got people with master's degrees. We got people with bachelor's degrees. We got people working on doctor's degrees. We got people with law degrees. We got people that with GEDs, right? We got people that went to the county jail. We got people, like I said, that's
Went through
juvenile
federal.
lifers, right? Fed joint. Like, so you can't pigeonhole us. We everybody in the community.
Uh, so also, I just want to ask you guys, what is something that they can do to assist Nation Outside? What is a call to action from each of you that can be done to assist us?
Man, for me personally, it's to educate yourself. There are so many facets of what happens in reentry. And a lot of times, what I find are the people who have not been there. There are things that they don't know. Starting with like, if you gain a criminal conviction, you involving drugs, you lose your license for 6 months, right? Like the I personally am a licensed massage therapist, but during that process, when I went to go get my license, I had to answer the good moral character questions. And what that is have you ever been convicted? Have you ever been convicted? And I had to not only tell them that I had been convicted, I then had to give a small summary of my convictions. My whole career is based around helping people break down these barriers. And when I was hit with this barrier, I froze. And it took me a whole extra year to get my license because I couldn't believe that after everything I had done coming home and completing, that this was still something that was affecting me. This was 6 years into my reentry. So I think for me personally, it's just ask questions, all the questions. No question is a stupid question. Learn about there's 44,000 collateral carceral impacts that happen when somebody comes home, and 581 of them, I believe, are specific to Michigan. And I'm sorry, collateral carceral impact. A collateral carceral impact is something that happens that the judge didn't write in your file. So when I went in front of the judge, he said, Miss Gildew, you're going to spend 72 months under MDOC. What he didn't say is when I get home, I won't be able to effectively gain housing because no apartment complex is going to rent to me
Yeah, that's real.
based on my criminal conviction. What he didn't say is that I won't be able to obtain anything other than an entry level position, and an entry level position isn't enough to provide for you and your child. These are just a couple examples of what a collateral carceral impact is. So for me, it's just ask questions, learn all you can.
What would be one of your call to actions, right?
I would say for our organization, a call to action would be to continue to get involved, participate, volunteer. Even if you don't work for us, you can be a part of Nation Outside. And I think that just using your voice, continue to share stories, like that's where it's going to hit it. Legislators, Congress, like continue to share your stories because they do matter. And that's what touches people and gets people impacts them the most emotionally, and gets the ball rolling on policy change because I think that's where it needs to come from. So get out there, vote, educate yourself about um, voting,
Please vote.
being civically engaged, things like that, so that we can actually see some real changes happening.
You know what I want to throw in there real fast is I run into a lot of times friends and family members who hold a bit of shame because they have somebody who is formerly incarcerated or a child, and they don't ever say anything, and they feel like they have to hide it and that they're alone, and that, but it's not, just not true. 1 in 4 people in Michigan are affected by a criminal conviction, and there are people out here. So if you're somebody out there and you're hearing this and you're in that situation, please reach out because there is a community of people waiting to form around you also.
Yeah, and I believe that everybody's system impacted. You don't have to have a record or spent a night in jail. Like our whole society is system impacted, our neighbors. And I think it's more common than people, it's like this big secret that we don't want to put out there. But I definitely believe that no matter where you are in life, like you're impacted by the criminal justice system.
Yeah, amen to that. So I know Nation Outside dope as hell because I've been around for a minute. I would like to know or hear some of the dopest shit that you have been a part of, or something that you really enjoyed as being part of Nation Outside, whether you did it yourself or you saw somebody else doing it.
Um, well, it's been some times around here.
Has it?
It's never a dull moment. But I definitely think one thing that I can say that I'm proud of, and not just for me, but colleagues of mine, is the impact that we have made with peers in our.
What, tell us about peers, what's peers, all that good stuff, and give me a story or two about some impact.
Okay, so we had a program called TIPLR. It stands for Trauma Informed Peer Led Reentry, where we had peers in our program who have been coming home from the Michigan Department of Corrections in the last 3 years, and they were assigned a navigator who had lived experience to help them in their reentry process. And I think we've just had so many success stories, and just being able to get somebody food, clothes, IDs, housing. Like we have done so much transportation. I think the big one of the biggest successes we've had at Nation Outside. And yeah, like provided mentorship, just created a space for them to be seen and heard.
What about for you today? Tell me about something dope you've done or experienced while working at Nation Outside.
I think the dopest thing that I have experienced in this it was a very humbling experience, and it points right back to educate. When I ask people to educate themselves, I also am still learning from all of the people that I am around. When we were bringing peers home, we would pick them up from the prison and we'd take them to their first meal before we would take them to meet with their POs and the rest of the support in the parole office. And housing, education, employment, digital literacy. These are all things that we're concerned about. These are all things that we know are problems. But I had the extraordinary honor of picking up a couple gentlemen who had been in for quite some time. And it happened twice, not once, twice. These gentlemen are sitting at the breakfast table and they picked up the salt grinder and tried to shake it on their meal.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen that too.
And yeah, you see, and I'm like, it was the most, and I was like, I just, automatically was like, no, let me show you. And I showed him, but it hit me so internally. Like, we're worried about all of these things, but sometimes we got to reel it all the way back in and realize just how different the world was for some people when they went in. Had no idea that they had to twist this grinder to get their salt out on their food. So I think just staying, the ability to be in situations that remind me that staying humble and everybody else, I can learn from them still.
All right. Um, um, yeah. So one of the dopest things I got to done since I've been with Nation Outside is actually picked up a few guys and take them out to eat, and really just get to sit down and enjoy and commune with them on a different level. One of the funniest things I've done with Nation Outside is I took a guy to go do some grocery store shopping, and he was confused as hell about what he should get. And it
Mm-hmm.
just brought me back to just simply how we forget the simple things a lot of people don't get to do no more when
Mm-hmm.
you are behind.
Yeah, no
And
doubt.
coming home, how that can be just so overwhelming. Just going to the grocery store to go pick up a few items and how
Mm-hmm.
overwhelming that can be.
Yeah, yeah. For me, um, I mentioned two things real quick. One is the first kind of call to action I was a part of with Nation Outside. We did those gas giveaways. You remember that today?
I
We was
do.
up in Pontiac.
I do.
The first one anyway was Pontiac. I think we hit four different gas stations. Did about $5,000 worth of free gas for the community, pumping
No.
the gas.
It was like
Twenty
it
thousand.
was like 20 to 25. We did 20 and then they added another gas station at the yeah.
And I'm talking about these lines were wrapped around the whole
Whoa.
city of Pontiac.
Yeah.
But just being able, Nation Outside, we outside for real. So being able to get in those streets, get that gas away, get people connected to different resources, that really like sold me on Nation Outside. Like, oh, like our org, we about something, right?
Gang, gang.
And then for me, the second thing would be the first time that I was able to go back inside a prison, right, through Reentry United, right, connections, and thinking like, damn, I'm really like volunteering to go back inside a prison. I was suspect about it first, but as soon as I got in there, I was able to, I kid you not, the very first person I saw was somebody I had walked the yard with, and we actually had beef the last time I saw him. But be able to see that brother, shake his hand, kind of get him to like drop his guard and let him know, like, yeah, I ain't on none of that no more. Like I'm on this right here, right? And we was able to kick it and talk, break some bread with each other. I saw a few other guys that I knew, and to hear them tell me like they was proud of me, like keep doing what I was doing. I'm like, yeah, I do this for free. So
Yes.
yeah, that was like some of the coolest stuff I did.
So I want to just thank you, ladies, for coming today. Once again, this is Nation Outside, Seeds of Change. We appreciate y'all. See y'all soon.
Woo!
Thank you.